Hey guys, it's me, Laura. Welcome back to the weekly tasting. This week I'm thrilled, ecstatic to send you these wines. I'm always excited when I get to pick wines, but I think it's really putting the wine packs together that's the best part of the weekly tasting, because it's about comparing and understanding the differences in wine and also relating them in the context of how are you going to learn about wine. So this week we have the Piedmont versus Tuscany Battle Royale. This is two of the best wine producing regions in Italy. And the goal with me putting this pack together was that I wanted to show you the difference between, let's say, grapes like Nebbiolo and Sangiovese to really understand two of the most noble grapes in Italy and how they compare and contrast. And then also to show you just like what's relevant in Italian wine. So we have a super Tuscan in this pack. And also what is gonna be the everyday red wine that I want you to open, and that is from Piedmont that you can just serve to anyone and everyone, which is Barbera. I'm really excited to show these wines to you, and I hope you love my pack. The Piero Bussi Barbera d'Asti is a really delicious wine. Taste it. So Barbera grape tends to be a really deep dark purple, but can also sometimes be garnet. In the case of this wine, if you're looking at the color, you can almost not read through it. So sometimes you can see through them and they're transparent. This one is a little bit more opaque in color. It's got a light staining to the tears. So when you look at the legs, you know, that light color that just kind of brushes off onto the glass. It's got a little bit of that kind of viscosity, about medium plus. When you smell it, it's classic Italian. What does that mean? The classic Italian nose is kind of that rustic nose that you can almost smell like this like old farmhouse, and it's just more about what's not there than what's there. So it doesn't smell like vanilla or coconut. It's more of that kind of older oak smell. There's also a lot of red fruit. In this case, it's really ripe strawberries, but not candied, like macerated strawberries that have been soaked in kind of like a balsamic. You know, it has that slightly developed nose, and then it's all about tomato water, this really juicy, overripe tomato and the savory herbs of basil and tarragon and oregano even. A little bit of mushroom, almost like a forest floor. And then on the taste, it's got the ability to be smooth, but then finish really tangy. So in terms of tannin, they're soft, but the acid makes your mouth pucker just at the end. So you have about medium bodied weight in this wine, and it's really dominated by red fruit. So the strawberries and the raspberries, the wine on the palate tastes tart compared to what I thought the nose suggested. So that balsamic and macerated and overripe strawberry, that's just on the nose, but on the palate, it finishes really tangy and a long finish driven by acid. This is a wine that you would pair with pretty much anything. If somebody was having tuna, other people were having like a light steak like filet mignon, or you were gonna roast chicken, or perhaps even make a pasta with a red sauce. This is the perfect wine for that. This is the king of grapes and the grape of kings. It's Nebbiolo. This one is called La Sacrestia, and Nebbiolo is my favorite red grape, along with Grenache. And I really like Zinfandel too, but let's stick to the Nebbiolo. Nebbiolo is a grape that you can kind of always depend on. It's that grape that over delivers for the quality. So the color itself is always this garnet, almost like a brick color, and it has like almost a neon orange color. Often looks like it's gonna be really light, like Pinot Noir, but when you taste it, you'll realize it's totally different. So the nose on this particular one is sweet and sour red fruit. So a really ripe cherry and then a sour cherry. A overripe raspberry and then a sour raspberry. And I often find that uneven ripening, or that the contrasting fruit is typical of Nebbiolo, maybe because it ripens unevenly. So you have some dried fruit and then some sour fruit, which is really amazing. Then there's truffles. You know, you have your white truffles. So sometimes that can show up as really like pungent truffles. In this case, it's mushrooms and truffles, and not truffle oil. It's like a dusty forest floor, but really like intense earth. And then there's this black rock, almost like tar. It has a minty quality to it too, so it kind of gets you right up in your nose. It's not a light bodied wine. I think the alcohol is 14%. So, but that heat that you're feeling is almost menthol or mint. But where you really experience Nebbiolo, what you need to remember about Nebbiolo is all about what you taste, or not the flavor you taste, but how it feels on your mouth. So you think this is gonna be a light red wine, it's gonna be like Pinot Noir, and then we taste. So at first, you take a sip, you're like, wow, that's really smooth. But then you start to feel your mouth dry out. So that's the tannin. It's like drying my mouth and I have no moisture in my mouth. But then the acid kicks in and then all of a sudden my mouth starts salivating again. I almost think of like Nebbiolo being, because it's high in acid and because it's high in tannin, it's like a circle. Like first your mouth is dry and then it's mouth watering and then it's dry again. So it's really that kind of acidity and tannin that make this wine so structured like a box that preserves or makes the fruit inside really feel supported. So it's that long lingering finish that's like really fine porous tannin is how my mouth is left. And then I want another sip so I can have more acid. And this is perfect with anything that's fatty. If you think about cooking pasta and you put butter and olive oil and cheese and just like some nice, beautiful truffles, this is the perfect food and wine pairing. Okay, so Vitanza is a Rosso di Montalcino. And Montalcino is a hillside town. So you can imagine this is like a baby Brunello di Montalcino. Anyway, Sangiovese, 100%. And in the case of Sangiovese, it's a clone of Sangiovese called Sangiovese Grosso. So I love the compare and contrast of Nebbiolo and Sangiovese. I think being Italy's most important red grapes, they have so much in common, yet they're so different. So I liken that, the nose of Pinot Noir to that of Nebbiolo. So lots of red fruit, and the fruit is sour and can be a little bit ripe as well. And then you have the mushroom and that sort of like earthy organic. And there's potpourri in both of them. But of course, Nebbiolo has tannin. In the case of Sangiovese, I love to think of it like I do about a great Bordeaux, in that it has red and black fruit, and then it can have a lot of forest floor and like mulch and have some kind of more deeper wet leaves and things like that. So we'll explore this one. This Sangiovese can sometimes be orange in color, just like Nebbiolo. In the case of this, it looks like it's unfined and unfiltered. There's like a slightly cloudy, murky look, and it's about medium in terms of transparency and opacity. That orange hue at the rim is just a little bit more garnet, and then at the center, it's a slightly more ruby color. The nose is really, really pretty. I know that doesn't say a lot, but the nose is really aromatic. The first thing I do is get red plum and plum skin, and then I get this black plum. So it's this half and half of red fruit and black fruit. But by no means is this fruity. I mean, this definitely smells like a tomato sauce. It's got that tomato leaf. If you've ever touched the leaves of a tomato plant, you know what I mean. And it has more of a vegetal, of like a savory minestrone soup. You can imagine like celery and carrots and tomatoes just, you know, kind of blending together, even a sweetness, like a sweet onion. Again, some dried herbs, thyme, oregano. That forest floor, that slightly more mulchy soil, like almost smells like there's potting soil. And then a slight roasted coffee note, but not like a very heavy roast, like a lighter roast. When you taste this wine, your mouth literally waters, and it's all about acid. It's a sour, tart, underripe tomato almost, like a green tomato, and then red plum and red cherry. The tannins are definitely there. They're a little more coarse and a little bit more drying on your palate, but acid is the king of this wine. So on the sides of my mouth, I feel like as if there's red cherries with the lemon zest on top. It's about medium or medium plus in body, just has a little bit more depth and a little bit more concentration. And you can imagine that it has an ability to pair with like heavier dishes, and almost you can do like red meat. You can do the classic, which is grown or served rather in Tuscany, which is bistecca florentina. So you have this like grilled, charred steak made from the best beef, and then you can imagine the local wine, this Tuscan wine, just served like a grilled tomato with olive oil and a really beautiful cut of ribeye steak and this wine, and everyone will be happy. Maybe some roasted potatoes as well. This is a wine called Logge. It's Pietranera. It's a Toscana Rosso. So Tuscany red. Basically what that means, it's a blend of a local Tuscan grape, in this case Sangiovese, with international grapes, in this case Cabernet and Merlot. Because it doesn't follow the DOCG regulations for the grapes that are permitted and the percentages, it is often declassified, and that declassification system is not indicative of quality. What it basically means is they don't follow the local laws. And there was a period where this term in the 80s came about, which is called Super Tuscan, really referencing wines from Tuscany that didn't follow the DOCG or DOCG laws. So this wine is a deep purple color. It's similar to that of Cabernet. It has that opaque purple, and it smells even like blackberries and cassis and black plums. So lots of Cabernet aromas on the nose, as well as like a cocoa and a chocolate, which is a characteristic that you often get in Merlot, which is part of the blend. The savory aromas and the little bit of red fruit that you get is from the Sangiovese, so that oregano and tomato water, that classic tarragon, there's a little bit of that, but that's certainly, on the nose at least, that's taking a back seat to the Cabernet aromas. So this is a good wine if you like Cabernet. And the flavor on the palate and the body of the wine is similar to Cabernet. And then it has black currant, black plum, blackberry, cassis. The interesting thing is it's not as fruity as your typical, let's say, Napa Valley Cab, but it has that same body, that same richness. The tannins are fine and refined, and yet the Sangiovese carries on the acid, so it makes your mouth salivate. It has that rusticity that's typical of Italian wine, and really finishes so well balanced between fruit, oak, tannin, acid, and savory qualities. This is a perfect wine to serve with, rich cheese, with stews, with braised meat, or anything that you would think is fatty, like butter and olive oil or cheese and or red meat, and it won't disappoint. This is a wine you can decant, and you can cellar it for a couple of years, and it'll get a little bit better. However, it's really ready to drink right at this moment. I hope you enjoyed this week's pack. Be sure to follow us on social media at The Weekly Tasting, and follow me at Laura Maniec, and make sure you let us know what was your favorite of the Piedmont versus Tuscany pack. Don't forget to watch the videos. You never know when you're going to get a discount coupon code either on social media or right here with us. Cheers.